Yeah, good evening, everyone. We need to continuing our courses for the public sector accountings, and I will let inform you first that in the last meetings we have informed you to take the actions in the Upgrade virtual class or UVC. So, in this portal, you can access all of the materials until the end of the semesters. The last weeks, we have to inform you about the course of descriptions for this specific objective in the public accounting sector courses. And the evaluation score will be completed by the quizzes for the discuss or the presentations that will be selected in the next um, meetings. And we have the midterm and the final test. Maybe it break in the 20%. But we have the higher score, 10% higher in the quizzes and any other activity like the discussions or presentations. The main resource for the ebooks has been uploaded in this portal in the first meeting in 24th February. And the materials has been provided in here, and uh, most of the students has completing with the quizzes number ones that have give you some time for creating some arguments for the discussions activity. And then I also enclose about the sessions recording for the last meetings. So, before we start the sessions today, we have the topic about the accounting reforms, the standard setting, and the compliance, with the specific of learning objective to know you about how the political aspects will be have some uh, evidence to creating new accounting standards, and to understand about a common set of accounting standard doesn't automatically to be compared in our achievement for every countries. And for the next objective to understand about how opportunities, behavior and relationships will gather between the government agency and the principles for the private companies, and also they can affect it by the accounting practices and the harmonizations about the practitioner and in the private and also in the public sectors. So the material is included in here, and in the last sessions you have the second quiz that will be closed for today tomorrow for the formats until the end of the day. So let's take it first for the materials, or maybe I give you one maybe two questions before we can start the meetings. If you have any questions for from the previous meetings, any students can ask about the previous meetings. You can raise your hands. No questions so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for responding, Nico. I also say a thank you for every participants who can join this class with and I know your face. Yeah, you open your camera. Thank you for Althea Roxels, Edsel, John Leonard, Luz, Marilyn, Nico, Rodvan, and also our Ukrida virtual pawns, Catherine and Alexa. So we can start the meetings for the second sessions. It's taken from the chapter 2 for our ebook resources. We will talk about the institutions, the standard, and the compliance that will be happen in our country on in the global evidence. So this objective for this course is to recognize about the regulatory framework in governing about the public sector accountings. So we will separate about the private sector and the public sectors. The differences has been explored in the last meetings, but I will regain about the examples about differences in public sector and private sector. And then we will identify about the key institutions involving to the financial reporting in the public sector. And then we have the understanding about the role in our global standard from the IPSAS for International Public Sector Accounting Standard. Yeah, for the institutional framework, we have the specific while the public sector has operate in every countries. So in every countries, we have two sectors, a private sectors that gather some profits and they will be taxed or taxes by the companies and they will be provided their tax to the governments. The government, as the public sector agents, structurally will get some environment like the taxes and also with the developing the economics using the payment from the private companies. So the institutions, I means the public sector institutions, have the responsibility to provide a financial informations. What is the function to provide these financial informations? To provide with the performance that has been doable by the government ministry and also the treasury departments. And in the next of institutions, we have the supreme audit institutions. In every country, they have different name, but we will talk this about the differences in later sessions. Yeah, and in the other one is about the differences in a national standard setting bodies. So every countries have the different national standards. While we have under the international public sector accounting boards, one of board in the global standards. But in every nations, we have a differentiate by the national standards. We have adapted and implement with the adoption for every country. It should be indifferent for specifics. Yeah. The accounting's regulations mostly have in the four key public points. The first key public is based on the legal activity. So in this case, the public entities will be represents the financial reporting as the financial management. So they give some informations about the financial condition, the performance, also the cash flow. It's under the law, constitution, and also with the government policy. So all of they do is under the government's policy. The next key is for the budgeting regulations. So every countries have the government budgets. So they will be prepared, they will be execute, and also will examine for the oversight of their budgets. It should be in under budget or maybe with the over budget. It's talk about the estimations, but in the reality, they are rules like the constitutions or the government's policy. So every budget in every countries will have commanding by the government's agents, like the oversight bodies for the regulatory bodies or maybe with the governing bodies. They have the specific name in every countries. The next key factor is about the accounting standards. I know we have the one or single international standard, but to implement in every countries, we should be make the difference national frameworks because we have the different economic conditions. Maybe the national standard for public sector in the Philippines is different with me in Indonesia and also in the Bangladesh. So we have the different national standards, but it's committed to one or singles international regulations. The last key point is about the auditing requirements. While we have the budgets, we have the standards, we also have the audit process to ensure that our financial reports it's presenting in accountables, responsibles, and also in transparency to make some good or habits or maybe the ensuring with the materiality or our financial records. This is the public's accounting's view for the regulations that all of these employments like the legal basis, the budgeting and accounting and also the auditing is under the government's policy. This is our single international standards, international public sector standard. As we learned in the last meetings, IPSAS will be developed by one board. This board is International Public Sector Accounting Standard Board is containing of every accountant for the another countries. So there are many countries joining these boards to improve the transparency and the comparability between the government financial reporting. While we talk about the public sectors, the mostly region is comes from the government's agents. So we need the transparency. We need the obligations to compare their reports to citizens. And until now, we have or we still have two major approaches, case basis and accrual basis. I think this two kind of base is familiar while you learning of accountings. But most of your private companies or private activities, I think in every countries, using the accrual basis. But for the public sector, we still mostly in the case basis because like the tax or maybe with the contributions to the country is only recognized by the case basis, not in accrual base. So by the accountant in here is for the government accountant is committed with the case base of the accounting. Next to the national accounting standards. The national accounting standard is adopted and adopted for the IPSAS. So we have one single in international boards named IPSAS, and every country should be make some adoptions or adaptations. So not all of the IPSAS regulations will be comply in every countries, not of all. Let's say that we have 100% of IPSAS regulations. In Philippines, may be adopted only for 70%, or Indonesia may be adopted only for 60%. Not all of these IPSAS regulations will be adopted in every country because they need to be make some a suitable agenda that should be in legal and extremely conditions may or maybe we will be switched by the economic conditions for every country. So some of the nations will maintain about their government financial statistic standards. So it's depend on the economic conditions. It's depend for the government's objective. For examples, in Indonesia, in our country, in my country, we're using about the government regulations number 71 in 2020, in 2010. This is for the last regulations in my country. But in the Philippines, you have the PPSEAS, the Philippine Public Sector Accounting Standards. So this is difference between the accounting standard for the commercials companies. The Philippine Public Sector Accounting Standard is designed by the governments and may be implemented for the public sector entities like the governments and the foundations and also with the sum of regulatory under the governments. Another example is comes from the Bangladesh. Bangladesh also have the different reporting standards. They name about the Bangladesh Financial Reporting Standards. The Bangladesh Financial Reporting Standard of BFRIs is a similar standard between the private and a public companies. So in a Bangladesh, the public sector accounting using fully in accrual basis, not in cash basis. So in this country, they doesn't have the specific or they maybe not separate their different standard between private and public sectors. In Bangladesh, they only one have national standard, name of Bangladesh Financial Reporting Standard. It's comply for public sector and also with the commercial sector. That is the standards from every countries and the example for our countries. Yeah. The next difference is come from the supreme audit institutions. These audit institutions ensuring the compliance for the public sector entities will comply to the financial regulations and also proper for public properties. This evidence or these institutions will regulate about the public funds that has been proposed by the financial regulator. And these audit institutions also conducted about the auditing in government expenditure and also claiming about the financial statements. This institution is very general, so for the specific countries, they will make a different name. For examples, in the United States, is named GAO, Government Accountability Office. In United Kingdom, they have a different name, National Audit Office. In Indonesia, we name Badan Pemeriksa Keuangan or BPK. In the Philippines, they name the Commission of Auditing, COA. I think this is familiar in while you learning about accountings, especially for the auditings. In Bangladesh, they also have the different name, the Office of the Controller and Auditor General. So we have the specific name, but the functions is similar. The ensuring the compliance with public accounting entities to do with the financial regulations properly with their national standards and also make sure their government expenditure and provide financial statement. Yeah, this is we will learn again about the differences between the private and public sectors. The private and public sectors have some three features that make a difference in the regulatory bodies. In the public sector, we have the audit institutions. Yeah, the supreme audit institution is under the government's regulations. But in the financial sectors or the private sectors, they have the different financial regulator. The focus of public sector is only for the public interest. I mean for the citizens' needs. And they will need some transparency. So they have make some good image or the confidence from their citizens. While the private sectors, they only think about how to maximize the profits because they have investor, they have shareholder to gain about the maximizations of profits. That's the focus from private sector. It's different with the public sectors. In our focus, public sectors only for the health, the developments, and also with the citizens' interest or the public interest. We doesn't think about the profit maximizations, but we need to create some profits. But it's not number one or it's not the main focus. The main focus is for public interest. So in some countries, we have the different standards like the IPSAS and also IFRS for the private sectors. But as we learned before, for example, in Bangladesh, we only have one standards because all of the public sector standards has been recognized in accrual base, not in case basis. So this is the key differences or 3 points that will be difference between the private sector and a public sector. So what is the challenges while we need to learn in public sector accounting regulations? We have four challenges. The first challenge is comes from the political interference. This government agency will make some tricks or maybe they will make some deal or the behind dealing for affecting their budget reporting. So the government agent is also have some political interests, so they can gather some funds or maybe affecting with the creating some power and the policy to be make some government deals or maybe the power deal by the government agents. This is the challenges because money is not everything. While you get have lots of money, but in our world, the power is very powerful than the money. So even you are the richest man in your country, but you still under the government's regulations. So the government's power is more powerful than your all of your money. That is the political interference. The second challenge is comes from the complex compliance. So we need to adapt for international standards, but most of us is have the specific conditions. Maybe we have the unique conditions that only happen in our country that could not be comply with the international standards. So we have the specific requirement that we can comply the international standard, but we can set in our national standard. So this is the complex compliance requirement. The next challenge is about the constraints. For the private sectors, we have the constraint in the resources. They also have the problem, the scarcity of resources. But in this public sector, we also limited in funding. So as the problem in every countries, we still limited to tax from the citizens. Our citizen is hardly to tax because they have a different preference and they have the different confidence to their governments. The last challenges is comes from the data accuracy because this issue will be ensuring our reliability in the financial reporting or with the data analysis. So with a good data accuracy, we can make a good policy. But if we have loss or some error in the data accuracy, it's also loss from the reliability in our financial reporting. This is the challenges in public sectors. And from the political aspects, for the compliance aspects, the resources, and also from the data accuracy. In the end of the sessions, we will learn about how the public sector operates. They still do or make some operations under the regulations. So we need to ensure the framework of accounting is under the government's policy. While we make some national standards, it's also uh, compliance to the international standards, but we need to adapt it for every economic conditions. And then the accountability and transparency is a must for the public sector accounting entities. And the standards for international, like the IPSAS, is a global standards, but the countries can make some adjustments, some adaptations. There will be regulations to fit with the national needs. Maybe we have the specific like the free lunch in Indonesia. That's a free lunch program is a new standard in our countries, but it doesn't comply with the IPSAS standards because we have the different profits from the IPSAS. Like we have the sovereign wealth fund. The sovereign wealth fund is also difficult to explain in our countries. In Philippines, they doesn't have the sovereign wealth fund. In Bangladesh, they doesn't have the sovereign wealth fund. But in Indonesia, we have the sovereign wealth fund because we need to create some another income from the government's policy because we need to uh, accelerate our economic developments. This is the differences. So while IPSAS mandated in the international or global standards, not all of the nations fit with that regulations. They should be make some adaptations. And the last ones, we have the oversight boards, named Supreme Audit Institutions. These institutions will maintain about the key role to ensuring the accountability and the transparency of the financial reporting that provided in every countries. So the government agents will provide financial reports, and these supreme audit institutions will ensure that the financial report is miss or doesn't have any material conditions. So this is uh, the summary for the sessions today. Is talking about the regulations, the institutions, and also with the standard or the global standard will provide it into the national standards. This is the summary of material from chapter 2. In this, before I continuing to the another informations, you may ask with one or two questions. If you have any, maybe you need to exploring some informations from these PowerPoints. Any questions so far? You can raise your hands. Hello, everyone. Any questions? Okay. Yeah, Edsel, raising the hand. Okay. Any question?
Hello, hello,
Yep.
sir. Good evening. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Sir, I would like to clarify, uh, do the IPSAS mandate uh, the the countries to uh or to have a sovereign wealth fund?
Okay. The IPSAS is a global standards that has been should be mandated by the all of the countries, but they have lots of regulations. Let's say they have 100 regulations. But in specific countries, maybe you are from Philippines, like the Philippines maybe only comply or fits with only maybe 70 of regulations. So they only adapting 70%. Not all of these regulations will be fit in every nations. So the nations should be check it first, maybe make some agreement that what is the standard that could be fit to be implemented in their countries. That is to clarify that the IPSAS is only make a global standards. Sorry, it is only for the global standards, but the implementation is could be a difference for every countries or the specific countries. Is it clear for you, SL?
Sir, so you mean that the IPSAS has a regulation for countries to or to create a sovereign wealth fund, but it is only up to the countries whether they follow those specific standards?
Yeah, the sovereign wealth fund is it's not mandated in IPSAS, but the sovereign wealth fund is one of the fund or accounting fund. We have the different name of the accounting fund, like the general funds and then social funds, and we have also the sovereign wealth fund. The sovereign wealth fund is the function of sovereign wealth fund is to create some another income for the countries. But the resources of sovereign wealth fund is not come from the budgets. It comes from the if you have the ideal capacity of your fundings, you have the most of capacity that cannot be implemented in any programs, you can create with sovereign wealth fund. So you have some income from that investment. So sovereign wealth fund is like an investment to the another countries in private sectors, because they will gather some profits, they will gather some interest from another countries, but not all the countries adopting sovereign wealth funds. As I know that in your country it doesn't have the sovereign wealth fund because they still against about the minus of the budgets.
We do have, sir, a proposed a proposed bill that wants to establish the sovereign wealth fund, and it's called the Maharlika Fund. But the
Return
funds
funds.
will come from the like the GOCCs or the government-owned and controlled corporations such as the Land Bank. So the bill was not passed in the Congress.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the Philippines has been changes because they also starting to creating the sovereign wealth fund, but I think the income is not implement again in the government budgets because they're still in progressing. It doesn't similar with the Singapore. Singapore have wealth of sovereign wealth funds because they have maybe 200% for the income. They can do very well for the investments, but it's different also with the Malaysia. Malaysia also have sovereign wealth funds doing by the Temasek, but the Temasek has been lost. So the sovereign doesn't creating some income, but they make some loss for the country. So will be very impactful if we have the good implementations or the good control for sovereign wealth funds. Yeah. The Mahardika is one of the sovereign wealth fund which has been progressing in your country, Philippines. Thank you for informing, Edsel.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any questions from the others? Or do you want to clarify about some informations? Yeah. While you have get some informations or to be interest with this strategy or with these informations or the materials, you can do with this quiz number 2. The quiz number 2 will be closed tomorrow until the end of the day. So you have 1 day to close this quizzes. So this is will give you 10 minutes for every attempts, but you have the 2 times for attempts. In the first attempt, if you have low score, you can regrade your score, or you can retry your score in the second attempts. But I only give you 2 times. Yeah. 2 attempts for answer these questions. Yeah. Only 10 minutes with the 20 questions. It's only true and false questions. So you can try, you can learn from the ebooks, from the recordings, yeah. And I will close in tomorrow for the end of the day. So the questions comes from the chapter 1 and chapter 2. So it means the questions from the materials today and last meetings. Yeah, today and last meetings. Okay. This is the sessions, recording sessions for the session number 1. And after this class, I will put the recording in this after the quiz number 2. So the recording will be, take the link in here in the 3 marks for this day. And we can continuing our material in the next meetings in the 10 marks. We have the specific materials from the International Public Sector Accounting Standards. We have learned about the global standards. Before we are droning to our national standards. Yeah. As you know that in the last of the semesters, I think in the 2 Junes 2025, we have the one-off case study while the Philippines adopted this IPSAS. We have this case study. This case study will be develop you or learn to you about the government how to adopt the international or global standard into the Philippine conditions. But you need to wait until to the 2 Junes because we need to cover all of the materials before we go to the practical implications. Yeah, I think that's all. So we are in the end of these sessions. You have time to elaborate your materials, your sessions, your courses, and also I give you time to answer the quiz number 2 until tomorrow. Is it clear for the informations, for the quizzes, and also for the next meeting?
Sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Before I close the sessions, any information from our virtual bonds, Alexa? Do you have any
Sorry?
information to share?
No, there is not.
Oh,
I think I just want to remind you guys to check the UVC as always, so you will not miss any updates from the lecturer.
okay.
Then,
Thank you, Alexa, for reminding us. And please keep in touch. If you have any questions so far about the materials, you can contact me in these emails. Yeah, septian.bayu@ukrida.ac.id, or you can ask through the Alexa or Catherine's. Okay, thank you very much for coming for these sessions. We will meet you again in the next Monday for the another material from the International Public Sector Accounting Standard or IPSAS. Thank you, everyone. Make a good progress. Don't forget for your quiz and see you next week.